R&B podcast, episode 37. R&B podcast. You know that we talk with energy from heaven. This is our show here. You're listening to Russ and Blake. Come on a journey. See what moves we make.
Hey,
All right, y'all. Welcome back to R&B podcast with Russ.
with my man Blake,
Yes, sir. Episode 37.
37 out here.
37. Thank God for
Man.
another opportunity to have another conversation with my boy.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God for getting me home safely. I was off the grid for the weekend. Russ made a comment like, "Oh, you didn't post any pictures of you and Mila
For sure.
while y'all are in California?"
I know. I thought I was gonna see Mila with the sunset at the beach and in the water.
I got the
didn't see it.
pictures, but I had that family time.
Mhm.
The little reset was good, and I hadn't been to Cali in a while, and so being out at the ocean was beneficial. We live out here in the desert of Arizona, so we always feel very blessed when we have the opportunity, even though it's only for a couple days, right?
Mhm.
But traveling is such a blessing in it of itself, and it's good to hit the reset button and go see a different environment, see how other people live, and take yourself out of your own life for a little bit sometimes, right?
What were some of the things that you noticed about how the natives to San Diego lived?
So we were like in the Ocean Beach area, and we were talking about how like family oriented everything was. You see kids out at like bar areas because that's how they market, and it's not as much of a party town like Tempe and Phoenix can be. And they had quiet times. There's a city ordinance I don't think I was aware of where you're supposed to be really quiet after what 10
Hmm.
10 o'clock. So like a lot of the restaurants and stuff aren't open very late. But it's very good vibes. Everybody was just kind of minding their own business. People were very friendly.
Mhm.
I didn't see any type of like aggression from anyone, and there weren't like a bunch of sirens going off. So it's just like a really serene environment, and hearing the ocean and seeing the beach, it was just very positive. So yeah, out here sometimes in Phoenix, I feel like things get a little hectic and can be a little tense on the roads, and
Mhm.
people are minding their own business in a different way that's not as inclusive all the time, and like I said, not as many family activities as I saw while I was out there, and so there's just a really strong sense of community, and that was good to kind of immerse in for a bit. Um, so yeah, I really enjoyed myself, and I'm ready to talk about just travel itself because, you know, I think a lot of us that are able to travel and go see other places maybe take that for granted sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially the people that can do it monthly, right?
Mhm.
You go have a good time, but you might not really acknowledge the people in the place that you're going to or the people that live there and uh, think about what it is that is different about that experience, right? So, for instance, us in San Diego, we had the opportunity to see the sunset from the beach. We went to Sunset Cliffs, right? And my mother-in-law asked, like, "Oh, do you think that the people around here like really appreciate the sunset, like they would if they didn't get to see it all the time like this?" And I said, probably not 365 days a year, but um, certainly that's part of the reason you pay to live in a place like that, right? I would
Mhm.
hope that you take advantage of those things. And there were a lot of natives out there in the same area that we were seeing the sunset. You could tell that people really do just go do that. And that's like an evening routine, right?
Mhm.
And that was cool to see as well because we also have beautiful sunsets in Phoenix, right? But it doesn't seem like I see people out actually looking at the sunsets, but I do see a lot of people post pictures of the sunsets, which I think is interesting.
Mhm.
I don't know if again it's that sense of community that's a little bit different,
Mhm.
or if it's our difference in appreciation,
Yeah.
especially of nature.
In my opinion, pictures of sunsets on social media are one of my favorite things to see. Like when I'm going through people's stories and I see
Yeah,
that it's a beautiful sunset, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like
yeah,
I
aesthetically
actually care about
pleasing.
that.
Yeah. what if you saw that same exact sunset? You still like, oh yeah, I'm glad I, yeah,
Because I feel like it's that sense of connection to everyone. Like we're all from our own perspective
right,
looking at this beautiful sunset
right.
and maybe feeling some of the similar emotions that it evoked.
But in San Diego, we were all like actually there, which I
Hmm.
haven't had that experience in Phoenix.
I feel
Where like
that.
I see these beautiful sunsets in Phoenix, and it's like either just me by myself or me and Maddie, right?
Hmm.
And then I was with like hundreds of people that I didn't know, just all like standing, waiting for the sun to go down, and it was really peaceful. And then it went down. We all just walked away and went
I
on with our. Yeah,
y'all.
like it was like nobody was planning to congregate like that, but we were all there doing the same thing in the same space, respecting each other, and it was just cool to connect in that way. Like I didn't even talk to any of these people, but we were just like in each other's space, like enjoying the same experience,
Oh
right?
yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, yeah, it was cool.
So what
And
kind of like rituals do you want for your family on maybe an evening routine? Is there anything that you could see as a goal that you would set for your family to do?
um, just I think people overlook how powerful it is of having dinner together. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's something that we'll definitely always try to do. Um, you know, sometimes if we're recording at night, like now, for instance, I might have to eat separately, but if we're all in the house, then we're gonna eat together,
Mm-hmm.
right? And my daughter will one day be a teenager and maybe refute that, and that's something that she's gonna have to deal with for me. And I'm prepared to fight that battle because I see that importance, and it's something that I got when I was growing up, but also it wasn't every night
Mm-hmm.
because my dad had work obligations, and but when we did have it, even though at the time I didn't really appreciate it, you know, in hindsight it was important, certainly. So um, a lot of people might not really see that as a significant routine, but
Mm-hmm.
I definitely have already implemented that and will continue just because every little moment that we get to spend together is really valuable.
Yeah. How
Uh,
was it seeing Mila 1 year old? First of all, happy late birthday to Mila because
oh
she just turned
yeah,
one.
last week baby's one,
Yep.
big one.
I'm wondering, like, how was it experiencing her experience the ocean?
It was pretty cool. She didn't like putting her feet in there because you know California beaches are cold,
Yeah.
but you could tell that she was mesmerized and felt that calming energy of the ocean, and she liked seeing the seagulls fly over and the planes by the water and all that stuff. And everything she experiences is like amazing to experience with her for the first time. And so we took her to the zoo too, and seeing all the animals was really exciting for her. And that's just one of the things that I appreciate as being a dad, being able to kind of go through those first times again with
Hmm.
her. You know, things that I would maybe take for granted a little bit. I was making fun of myself the other day actually with some people saying like, I get excited that she was using a spoon. I was like, oh, look at her, she used a spoon. And it's like
Oh,
so simple, but it's really cool to see her like in real time figure the world out,
yeah.
right? And try to piece things together. And her personality starting to bubble, and she's like laughing more, and sometimes she'll like force a laugh, and it really made me think like part of laughter is like to be socially accepted, you
Yeah.
know. I think some of the situations where we laugh, we're more likely to laugh if other people are there laughing with us, right?
Hmm.
So like she sees us laughing, she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm supposed to laugh," and
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
you can tell her she's like forcing it,
Hmm.
but she's still smiling, and it's just funny, like learning social norms. And again, like a social norm in our household is gonna be to be smiling and happy and laughing and have that kind of energy, right?
That's real.
And she's learning that. She's
Yeah.
learning that, and along the way, she's learning how to throw tantrums too.
Mm.
So there are, you know, both sides of the field that you get to play with there. And obviously nobody enjoys the tantrums, but you got to learn through it the same way. So
I'm wondering in those experiencing new social norms if it also works if everybody was not saying you guys would have, but if everyone was frowning or sad, I wonder if Milo would inherently, get into that energy too. Like, oh, I'm supposed to be the
oh yeah,
upset.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. That's why a lot of times when she's upset, if it's something that like in my mind I would say like, why are you upset about that? I'll try to smile at her and not look upset myself, because there have been times where like maybe she'll fall and I like freak out a little bit, and she sees that I'm anxious, and then that makes her anxious and want to cry. But definitely, my response influences hers.
Mm.
So people always compliment how calm she is in public. I'm like, well, her parents are calm in public, but we're also calm at home. But she does have her tantrums at home, which I'm grateful for though, because we can enjoy ourselves and not feel like we're disrupting other people's experience, right? Because
Yeah.
we've all seen the baby at the restaurant or something that's like throwing a fit, and everybody's kind of staring, and I've always like dreaded that being my situation, and we're only at one, so the terrible twos have that name for a reason, so we'll see how that goes. But
Yeah.
so far we're doing really good as far as behavior, and I'm so grateful for that. And I think that my wife and I just have to give ourselves some credit in that, and being a role model and showing her how you should interact with people.
Mm.
um, and then I'm a little overprotective sometimes, because if people say or do certain things or act certain ways around, I'm like, yo, 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 like my kid's watching, like let's straighten it up a little bit, okay?
Mm.
And usually it's received well, which I'm glad about that. But I was telling you earlier, like if somebody doesn't receive something well and it's in relation to my daughter, who's my responsibility, a lot of times I'm gonna push their emotions aside, because
Mm-hmm.
now that I have a very concrete number one priority in my life as far as protection and uh, making decisions myself, and I need everyone who's gonna interact with me to understand that too.
That's real.
Mm.
That's super real. I'm wondering, what was your favorite thing that you saw? What was your favorite animal that you saw at the zoo?
You know, it's funny. I When we were going, I told everybody, I'm like, you guys got to pick a favorite animal before we get out of here. Like that's the rule for today. And then I was the one that struggled the hardest to
Mm.
decide. There, I show you a picture of this eagle, the crown eagle.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing a bird that's like 4 feet tall is nuts,
Yeah.
and that thing can eat small gazelles. And honestly, there were a lot of birds. There were
Mm-hmm.
a lot of birds, a weird amount of birds. And I was talking about how I used to hate birds. Like, oh, they're rats of the sky. Like,
Rats of the sky.
birds are weird, right? But I now I'm at a place in my life where I really do appreciate like almost all life
Just not
forms.
spiders.
Yes, you already know.
Yeah.
Spiders, scorpions, I do have arachnophobia. Don't play games on me, y'all. It's serious. But yeah, the birds were cool. All the different colors of the birds, the different sounds that they make, and
Yeah.
you could just see how mesmerized Milo was by them too, and all the variety, right? And a lot of them can live together and be so different and not be fighting with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I were talking about, because there were a lot of different type of apes and monkeys there too, which was cool to see. And you and I were talking about the bonobos
Yeah.
and how intelligent they are. But
Right.
one thing that differentiates us as humans from these apes is that we're able to live in large numbers and not be fighting with each other,
Right.
and work together. And that is something that I've been thinking about a lot recently. I talked about how quickly the world has developed, and I think we overlooked like our road system, the electric system, the plumbing and water systems that we use every day. Like it's kind of amazing that in such a short amount of time we've been able to do that across almost the whole world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then for us to all live by the same set of rules, and even just like have a similar schedule as one another, and all these things that we're in a understanding of as a society.
Yeah.
And then you go places like San Diego, where certain parts of the beach there's a lot of homeless people, and you might overhear conversations or see what they're doing, and sometimes their actions might not coincide with a lot of these societal norms,
Mm.
right? So I've been trying to really understand everyone, and that includes people with mental disorders or substance abuse issues, or people that just choose to be homeless, because I
Mm-hmm.
we know people like that, and I have grown to understand them more. Even I used to think that was one of the craziest things, but going out to the beach, seeing how beautiful it was, I'm like, if I didn't have really a purpose that I felt it was worth working and being stressed and trying to build a family, like all these things I have going for me, it make everything that I do worth it. But if I didn't have any of that, I could see myself just being out here on the beach, right?
Yeah.
Being in a beautiful environment where a lot of people just appreciate that environment and uh, are living their lives and minding their business. Like, I think I can understand that, but it's just not for me.
Yeah. But I think it's a good idea to ponder on because you really could never be in a situation where life is super terrible. You
Right.
know, I
Yeah.
feel a lot of times we have anxieties because we think of what could happen if our life falls apart and if, the things that we show other people of ourselves starts to crumble.
Hmm.
And ultimately, there's nothing to be afraid of there because
Yeah.
you'll still be good. You can find a sunset,
Yeah.
and life is fragile and short.
Hmm.
So it is a good idea to think about because there's a overarching anxiety that we have about our ego crumbling.
Mm.
The people who perceive us as good and working hard out in the world, knowing that we fell off or all these other things can
Hmm.
drive people and make
Yeah.
people feel afraid.
Yeah. But a lot of that anxiety is trying to guess what other people are thinking, right?
Exactly. You're making an assumption
Uh huh.
about someone else's perception of you. And that's what the ego does.
Right, right. And yeah, being in an environment like the beach is a good place to kind of let that go for a little bit, I feel.
Because it's a natural phenomena that shows you how small you are in the vastness of
Right,
things. So that
right.
kind of diminishes your ego just because of how you're
Hmm.
connecting into the moment right there.
Right, right. That's a great point. And that's why people go to places in like Sedona and the Red Rocks.
Hmm.
Same thing. It's like being in that beautiful environment that's so far removed from what you usually see. Uh, it makes your mind just think differently. I
For
think we
sure.
get caught up in this loop of our daily activities and we forget all of these amazing things that are around us. And we
Hmm.
don't live far from Sedona, right?
No.
And some people tap into that energy a lot more often than others. And uh, from my experience, the people that I meet that are like very intentional about trying to be in those environments and really get the full advantage of it, those are the ones that seem to be more of what I would consider to be enlightened or content with their lives.
Yeah.
And
People that
um,
soak up the nature around them.
mhm,
Because some people really feel that way. Like they're tapping in, recharging themselves in
yeah,
nature. They do grounding with their shoes and socks off in some grass, or
hmm,
they just sit around nature and absorb
hmm,
kind of that energy. It's very calming.
yeah, yeah. And I was even thinking about astrology, how I used to not believe in it at all. And then I found that, there are certainly different times where I have a lot more energy and I feel a lot more motivated. And so I looked into it and I would be aware of when I felt that way and try to see what's going on as far as the moon and the sun and the
Yeah.
stars. And I found that new moons, when there's a new moon, I feel really, really good.
Mm,
And I get a lot done. And I'm in a very elevated state, it seems,
yeah.
right? And it's not like when a full moon is around, it's the opposite or anything like that. But whatever it is about, I mean, because as far as what the moon is just the how the sun is reflecting off in comparison to where the earth is located, right?
Right.
So it's hard for me to understand why that would be significant. I'm sure maybe somebody has an explanation as far as like gravitational pulls or something like that, but to me it's like the moon just looks different. There's less or more light.
Mm-hmm.
But I know for a fact that when there's little or no light on the moon, my body is like at full strength. I'm at
Mm.
like 100%.
That's interesting.
It is.
Because in Avatar: The Last Airbender, like that's when the Fire Nation like loses their strength is when there's a new moon. Because
Oh.
like it's maybe it's a solar eclipse
Oh,
actually.
I think that,
I,
yeah,
I think
yeah,
it's a
yeah. I
solar
think that
eclipse
is
that
that.
happens, and like when it happens, they lose their power until the sun comes back out. So
Uh-huh.
never mind,
Uh-huh. Similar concept though.
but
I mean, there's a lot of correlations between the energy of the universe and these celestial beings and the position of the planets and the sun. Like
for sure, this is one of the oldest stories people have been telling, right? I
right. And
mean,
it, like I said, it's something that I've never really believed in until this thing with the moon. And then so
mm,
I've been like listening to people talk more about their astrology signs,
yeah.
just because a lot of people talk about that, and I don't know much about it myself.
Maybe we should have someone come on who can school us on
We
something,
should.
or at least that we can ask good questions
So
to about
whoever's
it.
listening to this, if you are well versed in terms of astrology, please hit us up. We'll be looking for you, but we need an expert on this.
I don't think they'll be that hard to find. I'm not trying to be like a jerk,
Well.
but
I think that a lot of people would consider themselves experts, but they only reading a blog.
yeah,
So I want somebody that's done some real
for
research
sure. Like the textbook,
and
like
that's
you
really
read the
living this,
astrology
right?
textbook. What?
And that's really living it too.
Sure. Yeah, because there's people that align their decisions with what's going on
Yeah,
in the sky.
yeah, and that's way different. Like I'm like a proud Leo, but like I don't really know about all the other signs and how they interact with me. And
No.
I've heard people say that, and it's like a different language.
And I don't know for me if I'm self-absorbed in any way, but everything that I've ever heard about my astrology sign, I just hear the good things about it, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, that's me. Like that does sound like me,
Yeah,
like
that's
mad
funny.
emotionally intelligent. Like, and that's all I'll take from it and move on. I don't even read what could be negative.
What are you, a Pisces?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, as far as what I know, there's mostly like positive thing about Pisces, right?
I don't know.
But I know the negatives.
I just know Absol is also a Pisces.
Interesting. And there are a lot of people that are Leos.
And Absol is one of my like favorite like hip hop artists as far as how he thinks and like the words that he chooses to say.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because whenever I hear him in like interviews and whatnot, he always sounds cool.
Yeah. And I've always just looked at those as coincidences, to be honest. Until recently. I'm trying to like understand that more. But it's always seemed to like clash a little bit with my spiritual awareness to an extent.
The idea of astrology clashes with your spiritual
It
awareness.
seemed like it a little bit
Yeah.
because it's like where does all this control of the stars and the moon come into play with God? But I guess that's just like another subsection of his power, right? Because it's
That's the
still under
question,
him.
man. Yeah, like that's the question that would be nice to have someone who maybe has studied that
Yeah,
talk to
yeah,
us because I
yeah.
have no idea. Yeah, because in my mind it's like what you think is predictable always is proven to be unpredictable. I think as human beings, we really want to believe that there's at least one thing that we can count on to be predictable, but I don't
Mm.
really believe there is. I think everything kind of is on its own
Yeah,
trajectory, you know, and we just
yeah.
want to find a pattern because that's what we do, but
Well,
it's
yeah,
not
we're
true.
attracted to patterns.
Exactly. Because
Uh-huh.
it helps us make sense of the world.
Yeah,
So it gives us a calming feeling.
yeah. That's why numbers are so powerful because patterns are a product of numbers.
And that's why nature is so calming because it's unpredictable and beautiful.
Hmm.
Very more similar to what real life is.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of times unpredictability is what causes anxiety as well.
But it's also the only thing that helps someone feel alive. You know what
Mm,
I mean? Like
yeah, yeah,
a bit of unpredictability.
yeah. We've talked about how crippling monotony and boringness can be for some
Sure.
people, right?
But also how to take advantage of that boring monotony, right? Go
Yep,
ahead
yep,
and
yep.
check out episode 36.
Part of that unpredictable feeling you get when you travel, right?
Yeah.
You go somewhere new, or you might go somewhere you've been to before, but it's been a while. So, regardless, it's different than your normal daily situation. So, if you spend 300 days out of the year just working, grinding, living your life, and all of a sudden you get to go branch off from that, that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had people tell me, like, oh, you're only going for 2 days? Like, yeah, that's better than not going, right? Like,
For
I
yeah.
got responsibilities. It's cool when you can take off a week or two to go somewhere, but also there's different stages in life where that's appropriate to me.
For sure.
And I have not ever been on a 2 week vacation. That almost makes me feel a little anxious being away from my life that long. A lot of
Mm.
my friends go on trips that long, and they do say it's hard to get back into the swing of things sometimes. But I have a lot of goals that I want to reach before I do that level of traveling.
I feel you. I'm on same thing with me for sure.
Hmm. But in the meantime, take these short trips when I get a chance,
Yep.
and just try to learn about a lot of places because I also don't want to go somewhere I don't know anything about. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, well, I know that happens a lot. I have friends that go to different countries; they don't know one word of that language of the country they're going to. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, to me, I think you should do a little research. Like, you want to be culturally appropriate, keep yourself safe in that way, and be able to relate to people.
For sure.
Um, and that I've spoken before about how you kind of need that when you're going to even a different state,
Did
right?
you work out in San Diego?
I did not. We were at the zoo for 6.5 hours.
You didn't
So
hit any push-ups or anything? Like
I
you
did not. I
dang.
got a lot of steps in. I got a
Yeah,
lot
I
of. We
feel
did a
that.
lot of walking. Did a
Mm.
lot of walking, and that's one thing though. I'm down to branch off into that actually because um, I do take 3 day rest periods sometimes where I
Mm.
don't work out
Nice.
because when you work out really, really hard for a few days in a row, you do need a few days to recover, in my opinion. And that can be active recovery. For me, I did a lot of walking, did a little bit of stretching, but I'm not someone to work out every day of the week.
Do you think that there's a large part of the workout community that disagrees with that?
Yeah,
'Cause-
no, there's definitely a big debate on overtraining and the proper recovery times and methods and programming, stuff like that. I think that your recovery has to be equivalent to your exercise.
Hmm.
People work out at different intensities, so there's a lot of factors into it, right? Because you can work out every day, but if you're someone that's working out with your heart rate in the 90th percentile of what you're able to achieve every single time you work out and you're doing that for like an hour at a time, you can't do that every single day. Your body's going to break down.
Mm.
And so I've learned this the hard way by having injuries in the past because I thought I just had to train, lift really heavy all the time, and be very, very, very consistent. But there has to be a break in terms of training. And like I said, there needs to be some type of maintenance in that break time. But overtraining is very, very common. And
Hmm.
that's why we see people get injuries and they are seeing a chiropractor every other week and needing to have PT very. I used to see my PT monthly just for maintenance, right? Um, and I think that I could still benefit from that, but I also take care of myself a lot better than I used to.
Hmm.
And some of that was just trying to put the ego aside, be a little humble, and realize that I'm aging a little bit
Hmm.
and I'm not a peak performing athlete like I was, but I still can make advancements and get stronger and work on my performance. It's just I'm not quite as resilient as I was when I was 17 years old.
Hmm.
So also on that note, having proper supplementation. I take my CMOS. I know how to hydrate properly. I know what foods my body doesn't agree with. I know how to kind of control the inflammation in my body, right? So when you take all those things into account, you just learn yourself. You can train as little or as much as you want and still get the results that you need, right? There's a
Hmm.
lot of ways to get the same results, and people are often looking for someone to tell them the right way, right? But I think you can get to the same destination on a lot of different paths when it comes to health and fitness.
Hmm.
And our bodies all react differently to different training styles, different nutrition styles, and different routines and regimens. So I just invite everyone to find out what's best for them because I've had clients that have worked out with trainers in the past that like, oh, this trainer has a program. Like they have this upper body program, how to get your upper body stronger in this amount of time, and it just doesn't end up working out for them. And I'm like, well, these standardized programs that can't work for everybody, right? They will work for somebody, but they won't work for everybody, and that's 100% of the time, regardless of how strict and dedicated you are to it. Are you familiar with what is it, 70 hard, 75 hard? Have you heard of
That's like
that
a social
challenge?
media challenge.
I guess you could say that. It's like where people they'll stick to a specific meal plan, work out twice a day, read 10 pages a day, drink a gallon of water. I think that's all the criteria. And they do that for 75 days. And if you break any of that in the 75 days, you have to start over,
Oh
right?
wow.
And I have clients and I have friends that have had like a lot of success in changing their body composition and that, but it's very difficult. And sometimes the result is people feeling less of themselves because they're unable to complete it, right? And I personally, in my current state in my life, you know, if I fall off once in 75 days, I don't see that as a failure, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that that challenge has kind of warped people's perception of what consistency really is
Mm.
because there has to be rest, right? So
Hmm.
I will never expect myself to work out twice in a day for 3 months, but you know it's not a full intensity workout. You have to be smart with how you work out, what time you work out, and you know, if you're going to do cardio and consider that a workout, et cetera, right?
Hmm.
But when it comes to like the time that you have in a day, splitting up your workout time isn't great to me. And so different things work for different people. I've seen it be beneficial and also detrimental. And that's just one example of how a program, or I guess in that case, a challenge, can have such different effects on different people.
Yeah. Let me ask you this random fitness question. If somebody had a limited amount of space, like a floor, we could say that's
Yeah.
8 feet by 8 feet, and
Yeah.
that's all the space they had to work out, and they had no equipment, what things would you say would be the best things to have overall just like fit body and full body strength?
Yeah. The most basic movements you can do, squat,
Just
leg,
just sit there and do how many
push up.
squats? Like how what kind of reps
If
and
you're doing body weight, you can do what sets of what really whatever you can handle. Because like me, I could do 100 body weight squats if I wanted to. So when you're dealing with a light load and that intensity is not high, you increase the repetition and you can get some pretty similar results, right?
hmm
So if you were a high level athlete with no equipment, you start with some squats and then you'd probably go into like some squat jumps, maybe into like some lunge jumps, that same motion of lowering and raising your body, right? But with uh different intensities.
hmm
So whether you're jumping or doing quick reps or holding at the bottom with the isometric, um, a lot of variation you could do. So legs, squats, lunges, arms, push-ups, really good for upper body development. A lot of people don't really consider push-ups uh, an effective training method for some reason. You think you need a bench, you need weights on a bench, but
yeah.
if you can't do 20 push-ups, I don't know why you're trying to do a bench press,
Mm.
right?
That's cool. That's good information. Yeah, because for sure, I talk with students a lot, and I'll tell them because they'll tell me about these shows they're watching, and I'll be like, "Man, when the commercial happens, though, are you doing push-ups and sit-ups?" You know,
Yeah,
like because I was like, with a limited amount of space and maybe not all the resources, like you could do some push-ups,
yeah,
sit-ups in your free time.
yep. And that was what got me into lifting weights in general. I used to have 5 pound dumbbells. I would curl those dumbbells like 50 times and really
Yeah,
just concentrate on,
in middle school,
yeah,
I
like
already know,
12 years old.
for
But,
real.
um, and I would do push ups and I would do squats. My dad taught me at a young age, like, you need to have a good form in your squat. So we didn't even talk about lifting weights, but he's like, can you do a perfect squat? I was like, no. And he just teach me how to do it. And he's like, you'll be able to do it if you just repeat and you keep trying, get the repetitions, right? And again, if you can't do a perfect body weight squat, you don't need to do a back squat with weight,
Mm.
right? And if you can't do 50 perfect squats, you probably still shouldn't be doing weight.
How would someone know if they're doing a perfect squat without having someone analyze them?
Feet flat on the ground, knees not moving laterally during the movement. So I always say knees in line with the toes. You can have your toes angled outwards if you want, but those knees need to go outwards as well.
Mm,
You can have your toes straight ahead if you want, but your knees got to go straight ahead as well,
mm,
right? So a lot of people put too much stress on their knees when they're squatting because they'll cave inwards. That means you have weak abductors. Your hips can't keep your knees from collapsing in, or they'll bow out very aggressively, right? And that can damage your LCL.
mm.
And our knees are not meant to bend side to side, right? Nobody wants that. When we see that happen in a sporting event, it's like traumatic for
Yeah,
everybody.
it's disgusting.
So just think about the natural movement of your joints, and all of our joints have to be involved, right? So you have to have adequate flexibility in your ankles and your knees and your hips. A lot of people have very bad hip flexibility. So you'll hear people say ATG, um, ass to grass, excuse my language. Uh, so you're dropping low, as low as you can in that squat. So butt's going below your knees and your uh, thighs going below parallel to the ground. That's not appropriate for everyone, mainly because of bad hip mobility. So if you drop below your knees and you have bad hip mobility, you'll have what's called a butt wink, and your butt will kind of turn down, and that's when you lower or injure your lower back,
Mm,
right? So flexibility, mobility is key in being able to do these things, and then also having the core strength to hold yourself upright when you're down in that seated position. and it's hard for people to hold a squat. So that isometric is something that's good to work on. Being able to have good posture, not rounding your shoulders forward as you go down, keeping that chest up. And a lot of people think that you have to stay completely upright when you squat, but it's natural to bend forward as you come down. You just have to have the adequate hip mobility so that you're bending at your hips and not your back.
Mm. See, this is the type of thing I imagine someone could just throw on while they're at the gym and just rewind what you're saying
Have
to
it
get some free
explained, and
game real
yeah,
quick. Like,
I'm big on form because I've had enough injuries in my life, and I would hate if any of my clients got injured. I want people to have the knowledge and the tools to do these things on their own and not need someone there babysitting them. And I think that a lot of personal trainers don't see that as quite as an effective model because eventually somebody may feel that they don't need the trainer anymore, right?
mm,
But I'm never mad if someone graduates from working with me because a lot of the things that I'm telling you to do, yeah, you could do them on your own, but can you motivate yourself? Are
yeah,
you really able to hold yourself accountable? And are you gonna be working on your form and technique on your own? Can you really feel like, do you have the proprioception and the ability to have that awareness of your body so that you stay safe through all these movements? And
proprioception.
proprioception and understanding of the position of your body.
Mm,
So stand on one foot and close your eyes. A lot of our proprioception comes from our visual awareness. So it's very hard to balance if your eyes are closed, right? So some people are not aware that their knees are coming in towards each other when they do a squat. And I
mm-hmm,
have to tell them, and a lot of times they're like, oh, I didn't even notice.
mm-hmm.
Or they're not aware that they squat down and it's like at the bottom they're standing on their toes. Like, whoa, keep your heel down.
Yeah, I know you've told me these things in
Yeah.
my alignment of
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
squats.
Which, you know, all in perspective, there's different training styles. You can perform squats like up more on your toes. I just wouldn't do it with a really heavy load
Yeah,
because you do want to have ankle strength as well as ankle mobility. So there's different ways to do that. But it can be very in depth when it comes to exercise. And that's why I tell people like our bodies are all built differently. We have different things we need to work on. We have different exercise we should be doing. I've heard people say like it's not necessary for the average person to deadlift because the the way that the load is positioned is more risk than reward, which I don't necessarily disagree with that, but me, I think that when I deadlift often, I feel the strongest and my I can jump the highest, I have the most power output, and it also helps with my cardio when I do high repetition deadlifts, right? So any argument you hear in fitness, there is a way to refute. And any argument you hear in nutrition, there's probably some level of research in the opposition. So you just another area and industry where you have to use your discernment and decide what's right for you and kind of try it out a little bit.
yeah, I like how you started this of talking how it's the knowledge of yourself.
Yeah.
You're learning about what you need as an individual.
Hmm.
That's just a fun journey, and that's the lifelong learner,
Right.
right? You keep learning about what it is that
Hmm.
you enjoy and what you like.
Yeah. And that's how I retain my clients, like
Mm-hmm.
helping them acknowledge these things and
Yeah.
realize them, right? And I've had people describe me as a life coach. I'm not a licensed life coach. That's not
Mm-mm.
my job. I'm just a nurse and a health coach. And my interactions with people give them the opportunity to learn about themselves. I feel, I share about myself and my journey and try to help them be aware of the similar things that they're going through. Just because I've been through a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Been through a lot.
Yeah, mad injuries. I mean, you've in the as far as weight room and training and stuff goes, you've had a very up and down, I guess, career all the way back to your
Yeah.
beginning of lifting when you were in middle school. You've
Yeah,
had kind of a
yeah,
long journey with this.
yeah. And so, been lifting weights for 12-ish years now. And I've torn a ligament, AC ligament in my shoulder twice. I've had a couple minor back injuries. I've had a couple knee injuries, sprained ankle, had tendonitis in my bicep from doing too heavy a curls, week before state track meet, couldn't
Mm,
throw the shot put in track. So, just a lot of, and I had no reason to be curling that heavyweight. That was not preparing me for the sport that I was trying to play, right?
yeah,
So sometimes you learn lessons the hard way, but the important part is that you learn, right? And my second shoulder injury was me being goofy, and I learned the hard way again. And that was when I really was like, okay, I gotta chill out
Mm-hmm.
because it's not worth me taking myself out of my job. When I get injured, I can't work at the hospital, and it's hard for me to even work as a health coach and a trainer because I need to demonstrate and show people things. I remember being on crutches and trying to show somebody form and technique, and it just like really takes me out of the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have so much even more reason to take care of my body and try to be on my A game as much as possible. And a lot of it's been trial and error, and I'm not perfect. Sometimes get a little excited, throw more weight on than I should. But one thing that I don't allow to be compromised is my form and my technique. And after 12 years of lifting, I got some of the best deadlift form in the game.
Yeah.
I'll say that right here. Anybody can challenge me on it. And, my squat form is pretty good too. Shout out to my dad for making me perfect the body weight squat so long ago. But technique is key. And I see some cringy videos sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll admit sometimes my clients be a little cringy with how they're looking. I'm like, yo, I want to post a video of you. Like, come on, cleaned up. Like, I'm not going to post a video if you're looking crazy like this. So slow it down. Make sure the technique is right. Because one, I don't want you to get hurt. Two, you're not going to get the benefit that you need if you're not doing the correct form. And three, I want to be able to show you off. So let's get it together, right? And some people, the proprioception and the body awareness thing is really big.
Yeah.
If you haven't played a sport before, then it's like a steep learning curve, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's not necessary to the average person unless you are exercising, right? So I've taught people how to walk, taught people how to run, taught people how to jump, like very basic things. But it's like sometimes a certain style of trainer might just say like, "Oh, go jump on the box." Like you know how to jump. A lot of people don't know how to jump,
Man,
not do it safely.
that's one of the workouts that I was always most fearful of is
You're
box
not the only
jumps.
one. People hate box jumps.
Man, I
People hate
used to,
box jumps.
man, when I was like in college and we would be in the weight room and I'd see on the boards 3 times 12 for box jumps and all my teammates just boing, like, like land
Yeah.
like cats because they all
Uh-huh.
bouncy. I'm sitting here like, man, I'm not bouncy. Like, I'm a spot up shooter, bro. Like, I just don't want to do box jumps.
Right, right. Bust your shins on there.
Man, and I would only ever fail just because I was afraid. It wouldn't
Yeah.
be because I couldn't jump. Because most of the
Whoa,
time I
whoa,
would
whoa.
just do it once I had to do it.
You gotta say that again. Why did you fail?
I failed because I was afraid. Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
Hesitation.
That's big. And I
Hmm.
think that translates into a lot more than just box jumps.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know, that um I was talking to my wife. Every year I have a theme. I don't believe in New Year's resolutions because 9 out of 10 times I'll say they fail. I have themes for the year. This year, inspired by my daughter, was no fear, you know. And I think that that has really helped me elevate my performance and my awareness, not being fearful in my actions and just trying to really be logical about the things that I do and the things that I say and be confident in myself and my intentions and being consistent and spreading love and uh, just trying to really believe that the energy I put into this world is going to come back to me, right? And there were so many things that I was afraid of in the past. And like you said, fear often makes people make irrational decisions or hurt themselves. I mean, even in football, when people are afraid to hit, that's when they either get injured or they end up injuring the other person, like diving at their knees and ankles or something like that, right? So having less fear in your life can be very beneficial, way further than you just not being anxious, right?
Hmm.
It's actually going to allow you to make better decisions and learn from your experiences and, uh, you know, have better discernment, even.
Hmm.
You can think clearly and really analyze a situation and take advantage of it for what it is if you're not so fearful of what you're facing.
For sure. And I guess really the only way to alleviate that is to go through it.
Yeah, you got to experience it. It's just fear of the unknown.
Hmm.
I've had people like yourself afraid of box jumps, and I push them like, just do it, just try it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be behind you if you fall. This is a soft box. I promise it's not gonna hurt you if you fall. Like, you can do this. I've seen you do all these other things. I'm not gonna ask you to do something that I don't really believe you can do. Like, I'm not here to embarrass you. I
Hmm.
believe in you, so like, let's get it done. Right. And sometimes it takes 5 minutes. Oh, I can't do it. No, I'm scared. I'm like, I know you're scared. You can do it. Like, you're gonna do it. And
Hmm.
then they do it. wow,
Mhm.
wasn't that hard?
Yeah. That's
Look
what
at
you
this
get,
little
like,
box,
conquered all moment.
bruh. And it's funny because it's not just one person.
Mhm.
It happens a lot, and that's what I explain to people too. I'm like, you're not the only one afraid of this, and that's why you shouldn't be afraid. You know,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of people that aren't afraid of this, and you are not any less capable than they are. So
Mhm.
like, don't group yourself with these people that are holding themselves back just because they're afraid of the outcome. You don't know what the outcome be until you try it.
Yeah.
And I'm here to support you through it. And even if I wasn't here, I want you to know that you can attempt these things, right?
Mhm.
Because anything that anyone has done can be done by anyone else. That is my belief, very strong of it. A lot of people think like, oh, they were so gifted, like nobody could do that the way they did. Like, no, somebody could, and somebody will.
Mhm.
Somebody's going to come along and try just as hard as them and put in an hour more of time and accomplish a little bit more than what that person did. We see crazy records get breaking all the time in sports, right? And
Mhm.
we're like, oh, nobody's going to ever break that record. Somebody breaks the record,
Yeah.
and it's always amazing when it happens, but it will continue to happen. And that is in much more than sports.
Yeah.
That's in knowledge and innovation, technology, and relationships. All these things. Like somebody's always looking to innovate and be the best, and
Yeah.
that's where competition comes in to be a really big benefit. But like we've talked about before, a lot of those people are really just competing with themselves, and they know that they're capable and they want to beat the version of them that they were yesterday, right?
Mhm.
And so again, that's the life I'm trying to lead, and I can only do that with as minimal fear as possible. And a lot of the fear that we have is just a failure. Um, the majority of things, whether it's us failing to protect ourselves or
Mm.
failing to make the money that we think we need or want,
Mhm.
or failing to be consistent in something that we're trying to
Yeah, like
accomplish, right?
failing to respond the way that we would want to someone.
Mm-hmm.
Responding with anger in a situation where you're like, man, I told myself I wasn't gonna get angry
Mm-hmm.
like that again,
Mm-hmm.
and
Or failing to evoke the response that we want from someone.
mm,
Sometimes we don't even try because we're like, oh, I don't know if they'll like agree with that. I
mhm,
don't know if they'll like that, or maybe they'll think of me differently, right?
mhm,
So the fear, I think, a lot of times is just shying away from failure, and failure is necessary to grow, right?
yeah,
It's necessary for us to learn. You don't know until you try.
for sure.
All right. I hope y'all are keeping up here. We're bouncing around a little bit, but we got a lot of game to share, and my
Mhm,
mind is racing because I've been seeing the world a little bit.
mhm,
And whenever I go somewhere outside of my home, I just have a lot of deep thoughts. Um, I used to hate going on road trips.
yeah,
They seem so boring to me, and now
mhm,
I just have this. I mean, as everyone knows, I have this different perspective of life, right? And so now me driving,
mhm,
I just, try to really enjoy that time. Uh, I appreciate me having the car. I appreciate having the safe trip and seeing the sights along the way, and, being out on the road, and especially when my family's there with me, being able to just, either have conversation or sit there in silence and enjoy each other's presence.
it's beautiful.
Yeah, because even that we don't always get to do. Life moves fast, so sometimes that might be the break that you get. Even though driving is tiring to me, right? And it can kind of take a lot out of you, but
Mhm,
um, I just try to see that as an opportunity, just like everything that I do now at this point. And so I prefer to fly. I love being in planes, love being up high, love getting places fast. But having a little 5 hour drive this weekend was almost like a good reset for me. Just one, doing something that I probably wouldn't have chosen to do. Like I would choose to fly, right?
mhm.
But
Did you rent a car or you went
no,
in
I
your
drove
car?
my car.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes used to say like, "Oh, I have to drive," but that terminology "have to" and thinking that it's like a punishment. I've been
Mhm,
trying to help some of the people in my life change that up. You can say the same exact statement and say "I get to," and see it as an opportunity, right?
yeah,
You don't have to do this because really, if you didn't want to do it, you don't. Nobody's making you do it, right? You don't
mhm,
have to do anything. Like
nah,
we have free will. Uh, so getting to do these things, like this is the opportunity. It makes you a little more excited about it, regardless of what it is. I had to do that to myself during the pandemic. Tell myself, I get to go help people today. I get to go to work and make money so I can provide for my family.
I get to live today.
I get to live today.
Mhm,
something we take for granted very often when we feel like we have to do things,
For
right?
sure.
Yeah. So, just another little key takeaway. And I heard that really from my dad. I asked my dad, like, when are you planning on retiring? Like, is that coming up soon? He's like, well, it's cool being in a situation where I'm working because I want to, not because I have to. And a lot of people feel like they have to do their job. I mean, we do have to work to survive, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we also get to work because some people don't get to work. Some people don't have a job. Some people are either unemployed or homeless, whatever the situation means, disabled, right?
Mm-hmm.
May want to work and physically cannot. So when basically everything we do is a privilege,
Mm-hmm.
right? I would say maybe aside from going to prison, like I don't think that that's has much positive light around it, but all of our daily activities that we feel are like requirements of us, those are all blessings.
Yeah, you gotta enjoy it. I was listening to a guy this morning in a Zoom call. He was talking about a basketball official who has been around the game for like 50 years. He just retired. He's super high level legend,
Mm,
in the basketball world. And he was telling us this because he was talking to a meeting of officials, and he was just like, man, as you guys are officiating these games, just enjoy each game.
mm,
He was like, because these careers, these times fly by,
yeah.
and you get an opportunity to be around a beautiful game and immerse yourself in each night that you're working.
Mm-hmm,
And I was just sitting there like, man, that's true because I'm only 27 and I feel like it's flown by. I
mm-hmm,
already know one day I'm just gonna remember these decades of stories with my friends and great experiences
yeah.
and just have fondness on this experience. I've always felt like I'm like an old soul.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm just waiting to catch up to my soul,
Yeah.
because one day it's
Nah,
gonna match. Like one day, my soul and my physical are gonna be on the same level, and I'm gonna
yeah.
just be chilling.
That'll be a cool time because I feel the same way. Mainly because people have told me. Sometimes I'm like, what, really? Like, you think I'm that old? Like, dang, come
by
on.
by that time, by that time, podcasts are just gonna be thoughts. People are gonna
Right.
connect something to their thoughts and have like a thought cast.
Nah, straight up. Yeah, no, that's not crazy.
Nah,
Y'all that think that's crazy, look up Neuralink.
for real, bro.
Elon working on that right now. That's the thing though, like all these technological advancements and the changes in the world, you really do have to appreciate every moment
You
because
have to.
things change quick,
So fast,
really fast. And I think a lot of people don't realize it until it's already over and done with.
for
Like
sure,
it's like changing right before our eyes,
man.
right? So all these little things again that we take for granted, just realize it's probably not going to be like this for very long. So just enjoy it while you got it for whatever it is, right? Um, Even some of the things that we lack may be a blessing in disguise
Mm-hmm.
and giving us an opportunity to be more appreciative of some of the things that we do actually have,
Yeah,
right? And I think that that's hard to think of because people think that the clock's working against them. Like I
yeah.
have to obtain all these things before my time is up, or
Mm-hmm.
like their finite time is well. Let me put it this way: sometimes when people know their purpose, they feel pressed to like actually make it happen,
Sure.
which is good.
Yeah,
You need to have that motive, but at the same time, you can't let that take away from the experience along the way, right?
yeah. And we're in a blessed position to be able to recognize that. You know what I'm
Oh
saying? It's
yeah.
just an amazing to be able to have the awareness of enjoying the process
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
allowing life's ups and downs to come at you and just kick it.
Yeah, there's so many situations like in the past week where it's just like I laugh because I know I would have responded so differently a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and then it makes me proud of myself because I'm like, man, I really could have messed that up back in the past, but like now
Yeah.
I'm equipped to have these tools, and it's like most situations are not a big deal to me, and people look at me crazy because I'd be like, come on, like.
I'm a pacifist. Like I am a
Yeah. Okay.
pacifist, so
Now
I'm
I got to
chill.
tell the story. This guy, he pulls up to the gas pump.
Yeah.
I'm slowly going into it already, and he's whipping around the corner, slams on his brakes. I'm already in this spot. He came from the other side, so I was completely in the right. This guy was so angry, slamming his steering wheel. You could tell he was cussing. His wife sitting in the front seat. This was earlier today, guys. Just by the way, and I couldn't help but laugh, and I was like, "Oh crap, I shouldn't be laughing," but like his response was like so ridiculous
Oh,
to
you
me that
looked at him and laughed, and he saw you laugh.
yeah.
Oh,
And I
that's
was like,
funny.
I know that's because Maddie has told me before that I do that. It's almost
Yeah,
like a nervous
for
laugh,
sure.
right?
You'd be like,
Yeah, yeah. And so I was
weirdo.
like, oh crap, I hope I didn't like really piss him off because
Yeah,
he looked like he was a dangerous guy the way he was reacting.
sure.
And, but also, there was a point in my life where I would have been mad that he was mad. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do anything wrong. Like,
Yeah, like,
why
what
are
are
you
you mad
mad at
about?
me for?
Yeah.
And I know that that's not ever going to end well.
Mm-hmm.
So, I quickly zipped it up, like, stopped my reaction, didn't pay him mind, watched him leave, and he circled back around. So I let my family know I'm going to pump this gas, ignore this man, but y'all be on guard because he looks unstable.
Mm-hmm.
But I think everything's all right. Just
Yeah.
making sure we're on the same page, right?
That's real, man. I've had to learn the hard way about laughing when somebody's having a huge emotional reaction because
Yeah,
sometimes it is just my first thought. It's like, oh
yeah.
my gosh, like they look
And it's not laughing
ridiculous, and you're
at
kind of like,
them,
huh.
right? Or is it laughing
Well,
at
one
them?
time I had an experience very early on in my officiating career where it was actually, I don't know, I don't want to say this person's name, but they were in the NBA and they're like an ex NBA player and they're coaching this team. And he was complaining about the calls. And it was like, dude, this is like a seventh grade basketball game,
Mm,
club game. He was complaining about the calls, and I was kind of disagreeing, obviously, because I was officiating. I also was not equipped. A lot of these stories I have where things went south were when I did not have the experience I have now.
mm-hmm.
So I wasn't equipped with the moments to deal with this or the tools to deal with this. So he got all upset and he started like throwing his arms up and like stomping his feet around and like spinning around in disagreement. And from a far away, super far away, I like started laughing because I was just like, bro, he looks crazy. And he's this kind of icon here.
Yeah.
All these kids look up to him.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of like, this is crazy. And right as I laughed, like just zeroed in on my eyes, like from across. It's
Yeah.
like he saw my first smile and just like zeroed in on me and was like,
You think this is funny?
yeah, exactly. And then I
Yeah.
had to kind of just like I swallowed my whistle and didn't even administer a technical because I was kind of like I provoked that a little bit, but he was
Yeah.
already having a demonstrative act and
Yeah.
resentment to a call or no call, which I know now is criteria, but at
Mm-hmm.
that time I didn't know. A
Mm-hmm.
demonstrative act and resentment to a call or no call. That's one of the 5 respect for the game guidelines for like the
Mm-hmm.
NBA,
Mm-hmm.
and you can imagine kind of how that can manifest.
Yeah, but that's a valuable lesson, right?
Yeah,
Because one, you talk about the tools of being able to handle that situation, which comes with experience and wisdom,
for sure.
which has to be a patient process. So you have to be aware of
hmm
those things, right? So you learned a lesson in that situation, you didn't let it happen again.
As a leader, you're always, well, this is how I feel. As a leader, you're always supposed to be accountable for how others react to you. Even if it's not a healthy reaction or it's the right one, you're supposed to do everything you can to make sure that it doesn't
Yes.
become something that's not,
Yeah.
organized.
And everybody should know that taking accountability is what will get you respect.
For sure.
You know,
For sure.
some people think that they're going to get the respect and the praise from not being the one that's responsible, but the person that steps up and acknowledges that there was wrongdoing and they have a plan to make it better in the future, those are the ones that people are going to look to in the next situation.
hmm
Simple as that. So, um, yeah, I even like this, right? Just talking that little and
hmm
smile. I do that in certain situations where the context is not appropriate to be smiling or do that little laugh.
Oh, yeah.
And it's something that I'm working on. I used to be like, "Oh, why are you mad that I'm laughing? I'm not allowed to be happy."
Right.
But it's not the right situation. And
Yeah.
you have to have that level of understanding if you
Yeah.
want to have a foot up in this world,
Yeah,
right?
and honestly, this might sound wrong, but this is why it's not mandated for me to wear a mask at the school I work at, but I still wear a mask daily. And
Because of your facial expressions.
exactly, because a lot of things happen where I'm honestly kind of weak, like underneath my mask.
Yeah,
And
nurses do that too.
yeah, because I'd be like, bro, some things
Yeah.
happen where my first initial reaction is, this is hilarious. And I'll kind
Mm.
of smile and laugh, but I'm like, I don't want to show that. So I rock the
Right,
mask.
right. I was literally just having a conversation with my clients recently who's a nurse, and uh, she was talking about she was doing an IV, and we're used to wearing masks, and she didn't get the IV right, and she made this crazy face, and then the mom got like super anxious about it, but it wasn't like a crazy situation. She was just unaware of her facial expression.
Mm-hmm.
So that is just another realm of communication that COVID has kind of disrupted, because body language and facial expressions are important, and that's something that we did differently for at least a year,
Mm-hmm.
right? And even me myself, you get used to having the mask and the face shield and all this other stuff on. So it's like you can make any type of crazy face you want, and something people don't really know, right? Uh, so it took a little bit of training, and that kind of lets us know in the first place is something we should be aware of, regardless of if we have the mask on or not.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that body language and facial expressions, that'll translate into how we actually respond to someone too. So once you're aware of that and try to take control of that, the whole situation is more in your control.
Yeah, and you already brought up the idea of kind of learning about yourself to maximize potential, and that's just another step about learning about yourself. You can
Yeah.
learn about yourself from like a 360-degree bird's eye,
Right.
introspective, outer, like every which angle you could start some studies about yourself.
There's a lot of detail,
Man, it's like infinite things
never
that you could,
ending.
for sure.
Yeah. And some people feel overconfident in their understanding of their self and don't think that there's more to learn, right?
Yeah, that's where people can have like an ego disillusion, similar to the idea of you being at the beach where you see the vastness and you kind of feel that calming. Sometimes people have that like midlife crisis or that break where
Mm,
they realize that this story they're telling themselves about themselves is not true.
aligning with everyone else's reality.
Yeah,
Right, right.
because now you have that like schism, and
It's
it's
almost like an identity crisis or imposter syndrome.
I think most people go through a time where they reflect and they're like, man, I'm not necessarily aligning all of my descriptions of myself with reality,
Mm,
and it can be hard to deal with.
yeah, because then I think sometimes they might lose hope in being able to attain that
Yeah.
level. Like,
I
oh
think that's
man,
why
I
we
thought I was
roast
gonna
each
be
other
able
when
to
we're
do
young because it's kind of like you got a big nose, and then it's like, well, yeah, I do. Like, but you like at first you don't want to accept that, and you
it.
want to get
No, I
mad.
don't.
But until you like get into reality, you're going to be kind of mad about it. I see
Mm-hmm.
this all the time at the school I work with because of overweight staff, and the kids like get upset and be like, "You're fat," and I'll see this
They
person get
get
a little upset.
upset.
I've seen people get upset by getting called fat, like adults,
Mm,
and I'll be thinking, like, to remain clinical in this situation, like, you need to just have a non-emotional reaction to
yeah.
that verbal, attack
Mm-hmm.
that has no consequence. But,
It's tough.
bro, it's hard.
I
People,
mean, for me, I don't think that it's tough to like discredit what a child says to me,
hmm
but certain things it'll hurt regardless of who
sure,
says it, right?
yeah,
Especially if it's something that you're already aware of or insecure about, or like somebody else has said it to you in the past, maybe.
yeah,
Um, but I've had situations in the hospital where people that I know they're, withdrawing from drugs or alcohol, or I know that they have dementia or something. They say something disrespectful to me, and I can feel me get upset. And I'm
hmm
like, why am I? This person is not in their right mind. So it
right,
doesn't matter what this, but words have strength
oh yeah,
regardless of who they come from.
and that's why you got to really define yourself. You can define yourself with your thoughts. You can write it out. You
Right.
can do whatever it is that you need to do to get to know like what your touch on the world is, so then when someone tries to give you a new definition you can be like, nah, I
Mm,
already know, and I know the hard way. I know because like I went the hard route to figure out this stuff about myself, so when you say
yeah.
it, it
You're
means nothing
right. Right.
you know
Exactly. Exactly. It's like, because that person doesn't know you. So
hmm
if you know you, then their words aren't going to matter as much.
for sure.
Yeah. Um, I've had to work on that. I had to work on that because people disrespect healthcare workers very often, whether it's
Yeah,
verbally, physically, emotionally,
man.
and we have to advocate for ourselves in our professions, just as we have to advocate for the people that we care for.
hmm
I advocate for my patients. I want them to be safe. You advocate for students. You want them to be safe, right?
hmm
And then sometimes we have to advocate for people that are trying to harm us. That can be a
yeah,
very complex
sometimes I
situation.
have to advocate for someone who's trying to harm themselves, and I have
Right.
to keep them away from themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And that's one of the most hard, that's one of the most difficult parts about the job I do, is if there ever is any self-harm that
Mm,
someone is doing, and then to try to like kind of remove that, you
yeah.
know.
Yeah, that's hard in any context.
Yeah,
Self-harm, and there's people not believing that they are as valuable as the person sitting next to them,
for sure.
right?
That's gonna always be probably one of my things as I get older, that I'm like, you talk about the traumatizing things that you've seen at work. That's probably one of the things for me that as I get older, I'm gonna have to kind of like talk out or something, because
Hmm.
I've just seen too many like self-injurious behaviors, and
Yeah.
it's hard to see.
Yeah, I mean it can feel very surreal in the moment, right?
Hmm.
When you're like witnessing somebody like hitting their head against something, or yeah, trying to
Yeah,
cut themselves or something
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
bro. I'll never forget. I'll tell like a quick story and keep it,
PG
like,
PG 13.
yeah, keep it PG-13, and also have everybody, have their anonymity. But I was working with a young girl who would have self-injurious behaviors, and like we were out in this field. We have a huge field at our school, and out by the gate, it's in Tempe. The 60 kind of runs, at the back of our field in Tempe, and she was already in a mode where she was kind of like in a crisis state,
Hmm.
and she was trying to harm herself, and she like ran all the way to the back of this gate, and there was like someone had drank an alcohol liquor bottle
Mm,
like on the other side, and just like broke the
broke it.
glass and threw it on our side. And so
Yeah.
I'm sitting here thinking like, whatever, I'm just gonna walk because she's not really doing anything right now. She's
Yeah.
going over to this gate, like it's fine. She can be in the grass. I don't really care. So I'm just walking, trailing her, and then she like shows me she has this huge shard of glass in her hand,
Mm,
and she's just like, "Oh, like, I was like, oh my gosh!" I
mm,
was like, "What are the odds?"
yeah.
And I had no idea what she was gonna choose to do, because like
Yeah.
she was like kind of all over the place. I had no idea what she was gonna choose to do. Luckily, she threw it down and like went a different direction. I was like, "Oh,
Hmm.
thank you." You know, there's funny because I was talking to this teacher the other day, and she said that she was doing a Bible study, and they were talking about Psalms, and she was just telling her Bible study group how like at her work she just sees God working, all the
Hmm.
time.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, that's real because here sometimes I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna get out of this situation, and then something happens where I'm like, oh, okay, I'm glad that just occurred. I didn't even think about that as a possibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then everything's chill after that.
Hmm. Yeah. Everything's scary in the moment.
Hmm.
Time is an interesting concept because all those situations feel like they last 30 minutes,
Man,
right?
some moments feel so big. I was thinking about that the
Yeah.
other day, man. It's like sometimes a moment can just feel so long, and just you're like, wow, this does not feel like the same moment when I woke up and went and
Hmm.
made some toast or something.
And the longest moments appear to be like the least desirable
For
moments
sure.
sometimes, right?
Yeah, but some most of the times also where you need to be like showing up the most, where
Right,
you need
right.
to be there
Yeah.
ready to handle business.
Hmm. And I was talking to my mother-in-law, about like depression, just because people that are depressed, like those dark times, they just feel endless, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like sometimes there will be days, and I mean, it could be somebody's whole life that they're feeling depressed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just for it to be drug out, whether it's a hour or a year, it's gonna be kind of a suffering, right?
Sure.
That you got to get through,
Mm-hmm.
and just understand that there will be a brighter day. And I've had situations where we're witnessing these awful things, right?
Sure.
And it's almost like for a moment you lose hope. You're like, oh wow, I really don't have any control, and you just have to let God do His work
Mm-hmm.
and get through that situation, and just get back to the script eventually. But it can be very like discombobulating when you go through those things. Like especially you have to go back to work and do your job after those situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, oh wow, that was tough. I'm gonna go home now and rest and recover. It's like, no, I gotta still be here for the rest of these kids, right?
Yeah.
And get back to the normalcy that we were trying to have before this event took place.
For sure. The ability to, and we've talked about this with you as well, the ability to just be able to move into a whole nother situation that's just as emotionally
Yeah.
pulling is, I've taken, I've been intentionally trying to build this skill.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked at my job for 4 years now. And even when I first started, I've like told them my intention is to develop a clinical lens, a non-reactive response, and be able to just get better at making decisions when
Mm-hmm.
things are chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I'm doing well, you know, and that's what
Yeah.
I'm working on more.
Resilience is a survival tactic.
Yeah.
You know, people that are able to be mentally and physically resilient will live longer.
Hmm.
Facts, right?
Yeah.
You have to be able to get hurt emotionally. You have to be able to get hurt physically and still move forward and grow from those
I
experiences.
remember one time a kid like was looking for something to make me mad. Like he's just throwing out these things. Like, what is he gonna? What's Mr. Davis gonna get mad if I say? And he was like, yeah, that's why you never made it to the NFL. I was like, what? I was like, what? I was like, bro, I didn't even play football. But it's just funny because like when you hear someone like trying to search for the things that they think
Yeah.
are gonna get you to finally be like, what'd you say? I'll
Hmm.
never go there, bro.
Right.
I'll never go there. I've had all types of wild stuff yelled at me, and I'm just like, no,
Hmm.
chilling. Even as a basketball player and official, I've had away games when I was in college where people would be like saying super mean things to me from the student section, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, dang, bro, I don't even know you
Yeah.
guys.
You gotta taste your own medicine. You know, we had the ruthless student section when you
We
played
did
in
have a
high school,
ruthless,
but you were
yeah.
always on the winning team,
I
so you didn't
know.
get haggled that much.
That's true though. Yeah, I know. I will take
Yeah,
it because I'll
yeah.
take that high school experience over the.
Right,
And it's kind of fun when, especially if you're playing well, when people have been
right.
talking trash to you,
You're like, okay,
bro.
keep it coming.
I'll never forget, bro. Minnesota Duluth, bro. We were in Duluth, Minnesota, and in warm ups, like the student section was like talking trash to me, and I missed my first three I shot in warm ups, and they were like, "Yeah, Russ, like not tonight, Russ." Like, you know what I mean? Like they were like calling me by my name, talking about I wasn't gonna be hitting threes that night. And I remember like the second possession, I pulled from like 30 feet, like right in front of their section, just cashed it, just looked at them. And then I hit my next like three in a row in that same
Oh,
like right wing by the student section. And that's one of the most fun feelings because it's like all these people you don't even know in this random state you don't even live in
yeah,
are like cheering against you, and you get to
yeah.
just kind of be like, all right, I'm hot right now though.
Hmm. And that's the mentality you have to take if you want to be able to perform under pressure and prove people wrong. The
Hmm.
more success that you have, the more people want to see you fall,
Oh yeah,
regardless of the context.
for sure.
And if you find a way to not let that chatter get to you and you continue to succeed, it makes the success even that much sweeter.
Oh yeah, and it's easy when you know that you grind. You know what I mean? Because it's like,
Right,
all right, you don't want me to shoot well, but
right.
I was shooting last night. I was
You're like, I
shooting this
do this.
morning. Yeah, like I'm always shooting, bro. Like I don't even know you guys. I'm not
Right,
from here, but I
right.
shoot all the
You
time. Like
wasn't with me in the gym.
yeah,
You don't
exactly.
understand this grind.
And that's always just a good feeling when you be confident in the work you put
Yeah,
in.
and it
Yeah.
has to have that monotonous consistency on your own time,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Be ready for that day when somebody tries to test you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have the discipline to do the right thing in the dark when nobody's around watching, then you are going to crumble in those
Oh
situations.
yeah, this sounds just like that J. Cole song where Damian Lillard's like on the intro. You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah,
exactly what that just sounded
yeah,
like.
right, right, right. Yeah,
He's
shout
like, when
out
you work
Dame
hard in the
Dollar.
off season, he's like, it always comes to light.
Right. Well, that's what's up, man.
Yeah.
A few twists and turns on this episode, I say.
Random, but it was cool, especially you describing kind of some of the workouts that one can do with a limited space. I feel like that's very helpful.
Yeah,
And I have a lot
yeah.
of kids ask me what they can do with
Hmm.
just like their living room floor.
And
So I
quick on
can.
that too, you don't need 30 minutes to work out, right? I sometimes will do we call it exercise snacks.
Mm-hmm.
So what, 5 times out of the day, bust out 20 push-ups or do like 5 minutes of activity, right? It's so much better than doing nothing. Some people, oh, I didn't make it to the gym today. Get up and do a set of 20 squats. That's a
Mm-hmm.
lot better than you doing nothing and sitting on the couch, right?
Real.
And then, like you said, with doing things in intervals between commercials is a very useful tactic as well, where you don't have to take away your TV time, but you can make it a little more productive for yourself.
Yes, sir. Audience, we get to live. We get to live, and we feel blessed about that.
Hmm.
We're both thankful to God for being able to provide us with the time and health today to get together and talk, man.
Very much so. And I forgot, I meant to say it at the beginning, but if you're here with us now, then you better like, share, and subscribe. Send it to at least one person that you love very, very much. And thank you so much for listening up
Mm,
until this point because we appreciate you so very much. And this is episode 37. And like last week, we'll see you next week.
Peace.
Peace.